Where does loot spawn at the end of a Zulrah kill? With the help of Modash, GeChallenge, and the Summit community, we reverse engineered the loot placement algorithm to figure out what's happening. I made a plugin called ZulrahLootLocator, pending review on the plugin hub. ZulrahLootLocator implements an algorithm to display where your loot will spawn at the end of a Zulrah kill. Now you don't have to memorize how it behaves in each scenario. You'll see exactly where to wait for your loot to spawn. I asked Adam about whether this is rule breaking, and he says that it should be fine. So hopefully you'll get to use this soon. You can configure the HP threshold to control when the tile should be shown. Set it to 500, making the tile always visible throughout the fight. 0, making the tile only appear when Zulrah dies, or anywhere in between. The tile will slowly fade out as Zulrah dies, disappearing right as the loot appears. I think it looks really nice. The rest of the video will dive into the details of the algorithm and our discoveries. Believe it or not, this even includes a behavior change in the game engine, introduced sometime in the past few years. We'll get to that later. One disclaimer is that our algorithm is not necessarily the same one used by Jagex. However, it holds true with 100% predictive power, so at the very least, it's equivalent. Let's dive in with a simple example. To calculate where loot is placed, you need to know the player's location and Zulrah's center tile on the tick Zulrah's death animation starts. We're not going to be using regular line of sight between these two tiles. This is where the strangeness begins. We're going to snap to one of 8 possible angles to start a ray marching algorithm. This was revealed to us by Modash. Even when reading his description, people didn't want to interpret it this way, but it's the only way that works. Start by subtracting the player's coordinates from Zulrah's coordinates to obtain assigned dx and dy. The angle will be one of 4 cardinal directions, or one of the 4 45-degree diagonals in between them. Here's how to determine the snap direction. If one of the two deltas is clearly larger than the other, by more than 2 times, then choose the direction of the larger delta. If the first case didn't say to pick cardinal, and there was also no tiebreaker case, being that one was exactly twice as large as the other, then choose the diagonal direction in between the 2 deltas. Last is the tiebreaker case, where the length of one of the 2 deltas is exactly twice the length of the other. This case has asymmetrical behavior, having multiple cases depending on the sign of the deltas and whether dy is larger or smaller than dx. This is honestly not worth fully articulating, so here's an image of our findings for all tiebreaker cases. GeChallenge brought up a good point that this is probably not the implementation Jagex is using, because a game developer would not write logic like this. However, this gets us the right answer, and is the only working theory we have. If you think you know how Jagex actually implemented this, please let me know in the comments. I'll give you 100 mil in-game if you discover an elegant algorithm that produces the correct snap direction in all cases, or if you somehow prove that the snap directions aren't being used at all, despite what Modash said. I'd love to change the implementation of the plugin. Now that we have the snap direction, we start a ray marching algorithm. For cardinal directions, simply follow the direction out from the player's tile in a straight line. When you hit a wall, place the loot on the last valid tile. For diagonal directions, we have another weird part of the algorithm. We're going to check in a staircase pattern, always starting with north or south as the first movement, and alternating between that and the appropriate east-west movement. When you hit a wall, place the loot on the last valid tile along the diagonal. This is a key distinction. It will never place the loot on the north or south movement of the staircase pattern. And one last note, if you're standing inside a wall, place the loot underneath the player. And we're done, right? Wait a second, how can you be inside a wall? So get this, there are 6 tiles scattered around the arena that the player can stand on perfectly fine, but for some reason they are treated as collisions by the loot placement algorithm. These are shown as red tiles marked with an X in my arena diagram. And to make things even stranger, the game has not always behaved this way. Check out this video from 2016. The player kills a Western Zulrah from this position, and the loot spawns on the edge of the arena in a straight line out from the player, just like you'd expect. However, this does not happen in game today. As you see in this clip, the loot seems to hit an invisible wall and spawns in front of it. I even replicated the 2016 kill by waiting for a full rotation to elapse to simulate having low DPS with 2016 gear, killing Zulrah in the same position as he did, but I didn't get his result. The behavior is simply different today. So what's going on here? Why are there invisible walls? Running a local RuneLite build in developer mode, you won't see any special properties on these tiles indicating blocking. We even tested if it was considered a roof tile by attempting a gnome seed pod launch. There goes 200k. At first, we only knew that one invisible wall existed, but after I manually found the rest of them and posted a picture of the layout, GeChallenge pointed out that these correspond to the southwest tiles of the poison clouds that Zulrah spawns during the fight. I asked Mod Ash about these mystery tiles and explained how it changed sometime between 2016 and 2025. Here's his response. In other words, he's describing how they used a hack to clear the poison clouds by placing invisible scenery on their southwest tile for 1 tick. However, due to a game engine change, these invisible pieces of scenery that get removed leave behind lasting collision for the loot placement algorithm, but not players. It must be some other property not transmitted to the client. And that's everything. Now you know how loot is placed at Zulrah. Keep an eye out for the ZulrahLootLocator plugin getting released on the plugin hub. Let me know if you have any problems with it. Have a nice day.